Welcome back, and I hope you are back to see another episode of Movie Nerdness. My name is Lyle Millett, and yes, tell me what you think so far. We're a few episodes in. If you like the content, let me know. If you don't, tell me what you would like to hear, whether it's more about movies, more about history about movies, more about Bermuda and its history when it comes to movies, about me, anything. I'm an open book. But today we're going to talk about my favorite person growing up, a big inspiration in my life. Had his posters up on the wall. Bruce Lee. Everybody knows who Bruce Lee is. Even now, many people know who he is. And grew up watching Bruce Lee and was inspired. But before seeing him in TV, on many different shows, I remember seeing him on, of course, Green Hornet, the series, as Kato, performing karate. We called everything that was martial arts back then karate. Martial arts wasn't even, I think, mentioned when it came to specific fighting styles. We just knew karate, so everything was karate. But I remember trying to imitate his moves on other people and on furniture, because he used to kick down doors and break tables and things like that. So we would try to imitate that. But of course, seeing him in other TV shows, I think Longstreet was a pilot, or was on for one season. I remember he was the martial arts instructor of a blind man, I think, private detective. Believe it or not, I think it was. If I can remember right. And please let me know if I need even to change anything, of any information I've given in the past few episodes as well. I don't mind being checked. I like to learn. I'm just most times going off my head. I'm trying to do better when it comes to research. Can get a bit lazy when it comes to that. But I do know a good bit about Bruce Lee. I've read books, magazines, documentaries, everything, almost everything. So, just going to talk about him today. And yeah, he was on quite a few TV shows and guest appearances mostly. And I think he was in a movie called Marlowe, playing I guess what they call him, a fixer, something like that, where he came looking for money from someone, and he did this scissor kick and kicked a light maybe 2 feet above his head. And of course this intimidated the person quite a bit. In the movie, I remember that so vividly, but that's all I remember of the movie, because I think that's probably the only thing that was worthwhile watching. But yeah, the first movie I really saw of him was Fist of Fury. It actually showed here at the Island Theater back in the late 60s. Of course it was dubbed in English, so but we weren't there to hear about the story. We were there to watch the movie with Bruce Lee in it. We had heard about Bruce Lee. We knew about Bruce Lee through TV, but we're really starting to get him to know him as a movie star. And when Fist of Fury came out, wow, this guy was kicking butt and taking names. The style, the strength, even some of the humor. And I remember the story was basically about him not he was being sent to the Philippines, I believe, to work, but was told not to break the promise, not to fight. And of course, where he worked was going to be taken over by the local mafia, I guess, and they would get his friends he worked with would get beat up by the enforcers, and it took everything he could not to fight, and his friends, his workmates, were upset with him because, like, why aren't you fighting? Why, and they didn't know about of course, didn't know about the promise. And until one day he was there and he saw what was going on. But one of his friends was, I think, pushed into him and broke this charm he had that always reminded him of the promise. And when that happened, for lack of a better word, all hell broke loose. And he started kicking everybody's butt. Kicks, punches. But, it wasn't, kicks and punches is how he did it. The sound he made, and the speed in which he did things. Not like any other kung fu movies of the time. I mean, back then we saw a lot of kung fu movies. We here on the island, we saw a lot of kung fu movies came to the theaters, but when Bruce Lee came on screen, he just had the charisma. He had the presence, and using his own words, emotional content, that you believed his fights, and how he went about his business when it came to fighting, multiple fights. But it wasn't that it wasn't realistic, because he would take some licks too. He would get hit, but it was how he would always respond to getting hit down. The final boss fight was pretty indicative of kung fu movies. The final battle between the older, more experienced martial artist against this upstart who thought he couldn't beat everybody, and the boss was going to show this young pup a lesson. But what we always saw with Bruce Lee, his ability to adapt, change up his style, and how he fought to defeat his foe. And I just thought that was amazing. The way that was my experience, because I just wanted to emulate that. And it wasn't even just the fact that it was kung fu. I know he started out with Wing Chun and ended up getting into all different types of martial arts, where he created his own martial art, which was kind of a combination of many different martial arts. Like whatever helps you in a fight is whatever's useful, whatever doesn't matter. There's no good or bad martial art. It's what's effective, and that was the philosophy behind a lot of his fighting, and his thought, his mindset. But the movies, man, we couldn't get enough. So I remember the next movie. I think I actually saw it on in the movie theater. Was Way of the Dragon, or Return of the Dragon, set in Italy. When we see him fight Chuck Norris at the Coliseum. Classic fight scene, another classic Bruce Lee type fight where he adapts, where he changes up his his way of fighting to defeat his foe. Someone very skilled in martial arts as well. Chuck Norris was at the time a karate champion. Tong Sudo, I think it was a form of Taekwondo that he was a practitioner of, but always sparred and worked out with Bruce Lee. And Bruce Lee wanted him to come to be his nemesis in this final fight scene in the Colosseum. I just love the idea that it was fought where the gladiators went to fight. And I mean, I hate to say this, but I think they fought in a studio set, but don't matter because it wasn't about that. I'm just saying because it wasn't a great set, but the actual fight between him and Chuck Norris was one of the best fight scenes you will ever see. And because it wasn't the normal kung fu movies that you saw, now but we'll get into Jackie Chan as well. I love Jackie Chan and many other martial artists, Donnie Yen, who's actually, I believe, taken it even to another level. Jet Li, these guys all learn from Bruce Lee, and knowing you have to do something different. You have to be do something that the audience is always going to be surprised to see you do. And you see that in all these guys that I just mentioned. Sammo Hung, but I don't know, a lot of people don't realize that, of course, Jackie Chan was in Enter the Dragon, one of the best martial arts movies ever made, if not the best martial arts movie ever made, the perfect martial arts movie. Almost, I would say almost perfect. There are some things in there that are a little distracting. But I actually, a lot of people don't know that Sammo Hung was in Enter the Dragon. The first fight that Bruce Lee has in the movie is with Sammo Hung, representing the Shaolin Temple. That is, Bruce Lee is representing Shaolin Temple, and you see how small Sammo Hung was when he was younger, but very nimble as always. Of course, he loses the fight, but it was a nice introduction into Enter the Dragon, and that movie changed the game when it came to martial arts movies. It elevated martial arts movies just quite a bit, even though there was still the traditional Hong Kong Shaw Brothers type kung fu movies that were out there. Golden Harvest was making movies back then as well, who produced Enter the Dragon and many of Bruce Lee's movies. But this movie is special, and Bruce Lee is special in it. So many quotable lines, and the philosophy of it. His philosophy was definitely being poured out on the screen in this movie. And when he has the guy, I guess from the CIA, or who they are, I can't remember, but they're trying to get him to go to Han's tournament on this island, and that they're at his temple, and one of the students comes and he says it's Lao's time, and the guy's like, what is he talking about? He gets up and he goes to his student, and just in that scene alone, he doesn't even do any fighting, but it's so memorable because of what he says and how he says it. The student said, show me. And the student throws a kick, and it's like, what was that? You know, an exhibition. Try again. So he kicks again, and he says, emotional content, not anger. And, you know, you're thinking like, hang on, you know, it's right in a fight. We fight with anger, but we're always out of control. Thoughts like that. I mean, even for a young person who was watching it at that time, in maybe 10 years old, while I was watching this, 11 years old. But the best part to me is that, you know, the student kind of gets it, where he starts kicking, is a little freer. It's just doing it. And Bruce says, Mr. Lee, or Sifu, says to him, how did that feel? And he says, let me think. And he hits him on the head, whack. And he says, it's like a finger pointing its way to the stars. And he hits him on the head again. Don't concentrate on the finger, or you miss all that heavenly glory. And one of my favorite parts of the movie, and we can go on and on about the quotable lines in the movie, because but it is strange though, because soon after that he doesn't say much anymore. Everybody else talks. You know, you had John Saxon, Jim Kelly, and I can't remember the name of the young lady, and the person, Han, to do more of the talking in the movie, and which makes sense, because in a way, because he's supposed to be low key. He's supposed to be there to investigate the island and see if there are any wrongdoings going on at this island, at this tournament. But I'm going to recommend you watch this movie just for the experience. He changed my life in a lot of ways, because when I was younger, I didn't want to do anything. I was pretty lazy when it came to wanting to go out and hang out and like play sports and stuff like that. And once, it's like after I watched this, it's like, I can do anything. Honestly, I can do anything. And I actually started playing football with the neighborhood guys. I wouldn't play, and I would play, but it wasn't very good because I wouldn't practice. And so they actually decided to start up a league, a football league for youth in our area, and they got some of the neighborhood boys to play and train. And one of the coaches asked if I wanted to come. I said, well, I don't know how to play football. And he said, oh, we'll teach you how to play football. Cecil Smith, I believe, sent by God, literally, as tears are coming to my eyes as I think about it, because, you know, my father passed as a young man, and I could look back on my life and see where God had placed men in my life to encourage me. And he was one of them. And he was like, he taught me how to play football. And when we played neighborhood football, I was always the last one picked. But within a year of training, and then when guy, you know, I would stay later, guys would hang out and help me play and show me how to pass, how to chip, how to do all the way things of kicking footballs. And before you know it, I was being one of the first ones picked. Within a couple of years, well, I would say within a year, 2 years, I was, you know, one of the first ones being picked when it came to teams in a neighborhood kick, we called it. And I would say it was partly because, no, I won't say partly, mostly because of the attitude I carried from this movie and from Bruce Lee and his philosophy. You know, You heard about, I've seen his interviews, be like water. One of my best, and this is where I, learned, I guess, a little bit of discipline. That's it right there. I'm just coming to like discipline when it came to doing things and being focused and not allowing distraction to come in. Because I became a fairly good footballer, and I was always up to the challenge when you hear about certain players and things like that. And I was also up for the challenge back then. And this is I'm 13, between 13 and 15, 16 years old, growing up and became like I said, a solid football player. But it was because of what I learned from his philosophy. And one of my favorite quotes is, I do not fear the man who knows 1,000 different kicks. I fear the man. No, I'm sorry. Let me get that right. I don't fear the man who practices 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who does one kick 1,000 times, practices one kick 1,000 times. And that really played a big part in meaning that, you need to practice a little at a time, one thing at a time, master one thing and move on to the next one. And, it's amazing how movies, can change your life, I would say. And after that, I became a pretty, I became pretty sporty. I got involved in cricket. Here's cricket, football, track and field. I did mainly all the field events. I did long jump, triple jump, high jump. I was pretty quick. So I could always do a little bit of relay. Ended up doing all types of sports. Whenever there's something different, like volleyball, I did kayaking, even did a little bit of swimming. On the island, you have to know how to swim. Most people on the island know how to swim. But we would even, the guys in our neighborhood were pretty cool though. We would challenge each other. We would have swimming races. We have running races and all types of things. And I know for me, a lot of why I did it was because of the philosophy I learned from Bruce Lee. And it's because of his movies. You went to the movies and you saw him doing all these amazing things. Chinese Connection, was one of my favorites as well. There's a kind of a chronological thing when it comes to the Chinese Connection. I can't remember what it's there's another name for it. It's when he comes back after his Sifu master has passed away under suspicious circumstances, and he comes back and we find out that it's the Japanese, and anyone knows back then Japanese and Chinese did not like each other very much. I think in some ways they still don't. But he goes on a rampage or a revenge tear against the Japanese, and of course the Japanese retaliate. They come back after his school and his friends, and so it's back and forth. But the final battle, of course, is between the Japanese master and him, and awesome fight scene. And that's where you get the famous slow motion shot of him with the arms, who's doing this thing with his arms, and it's the slow motion. Oh man, it's wow. But it's that yell he does too. I didn't even want to try it, but he sounded like a cat, but he moved like one too. He was so quick, and would always seem to land on his feet. Never lost a fight, of course, but Chinese Connection, and if you watch a lot of kung fu movies, and I'm trying to remember the name of his master, but if anyone has seen, and there's a couple movies that are kind of based around this, that particular movie in Chinese Connection. If you've seen Fearless with Jet Li, if you see that story, and this, a lot of this is, a lot of these movies, especially Chinese kung fu movies, a lot of them are based on real events, loosely based, but you will find, there is some historical fact to some of it, and also do a lot of the, even with their mythology, you will find a lot of kung fu movies are based around their mythology in China. But if you look at Fearless, Jet Li plays his Sifu, his master, believe it or not, because the Japanese in the movie Fearless poisoned him in the last fight. If you watch Fearless, or another awesome martial arts movie, Jet Li fights the ending fights all these people from different styles around the world, ending up fighting a Japanese fighter who knew karate and with a samurai sword, I believe it is, but someone spikes his tea and he dies there on the mat after defeating the Japanese fighter. So if you watch Fearless and then go watch The Chinese Connection with Bruce Lee, it's a continuation of Fearless, although Chinese Connection was made almost 40 years later, if you get me. I challenge you to do that. Check it out. It's pretty interesting. But I just, that's why I love kung fu movies too. It's that's another passion of mine. I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, and again, some good, some bad, and it's always not what they're doing, but how they do it. And that's why I think guys like Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Donnie Yen, special, Sammo Hung, are special. There are some others who were trailblazers, guys who came over from Korea to Hong Kong to fight. To be a part of the kung fu craze and kung fu movies. And I think I put some names up. I'll put them up again. And but I have to say, I know I'm getting low on time, that the experiences that I've had with Bruce Lee and the martial arts has been a lifelong lesson in discipline, focus, and I actually ended up doing martial arts myself for about 9 years. I found something that I love to do, and I had been to a couple dojos before I landed on ninjutsu-do, Japanese art. I loved it because you had to master certain things first before you moved on. And one of the biggest things about what we had to learn in ninjutsu-do was how to fall. Literally how to fall. How to fall on your face, how to fall on your back, how to fall on your side. If you're falling from a high distance, how do you fall? And we didn't get into a lot of sparring or techniques until we actually learned the basics of the falls. And once you learn the basics of the falls, there's even an acceleration of or an extension of those falls and how you would do them. Very, very methodical, very challenging, very simple though. You know what I mean? The art is very direct. And a lot of different types of moves, kicks, punches, wrist locks, throws. It did everything. It was a mixed martial art in some ways. But I did it for about 9 years. And even today, I know that if I fell, I would know how to, it's so instinctual. Even at 60 years old, I can still do a decent fall. I think. Yeah. But that's how much of an impact that, Bruce Lee had on my life, and his philosophy. I probably will talk more about it at some point in time, because there's so much that I've learned through it. And some say he was the innovator of MMA, mixed martial arts. Jeet Kune Do, way of the intercepting fist, was his martial art, and he incorporated many different types of martial arts, even fencing, boxing, into his art. And I thought that was amazing. And yeah, so I mean, even Dana White himself has said that that Bruce Lee is the one who introduced mixed martial arts to the world. Bill's statement, and that MMA makes a lot of money today, and I'm sure they owe a lot to Bruce Lee. So with that, I'm going to leave you. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Please give me some feedback. Let me know how I'm doing, and I'll see you soon.